There are some franchises that are iconic. Series where every game is amazing. Games that have been pillars to the video game scene for decades now. They know what they're doing and they do it very well. I think about series like Mario Kart, God of War, or Grand Theft Auto. Sure, very different games by nature, but what they do, they just do it well. You know what to expect every time you buy a game from this franchise. When you buy Super Smash Bros., you know exactly what you're getting and you're always going to have a good time. Those are not the franchises we're discussing today. There are a couple of franchises that have decided to mix it up over the years. That's what we're going to be looking at. Franchises that wanted to try something different. Let's discuss the black sheeps of gaming franchises. We will start with Star Fox Adventures on GameCube, and I'm wondering if this is going to be the most controversial game we discuss today. If you've never followed the development cycle for Star Fox Adventures, I'll loosely summarize it here so we're all on the same page. This game began development back on the N64 as Dinosaur Planet. It was being developed by Rare around the same time as N64 groundbreaking titles like Conker and Banjo-Kazooie. Needless to say, there was hype around anything Rare was involved in. However, development for the N64 version of Dinosaur Planet would be scrapped. This would prove heartbreaking to Zelda fans and Rare fans, because Dinosaur Planet was pegged as Rare's take on the Zelda genre. By the time development cycle had begun for the GameCube version of Dinosaur Planet, it was reskinned to be a Star Fox game. That is the gist of the development cycle, and if anyone wants to go more in detail in the comments, feel free, but that gets you up to speed for the sake of this video. And it's important to have that background when discussing why Star Fox Adventures is considered the black sheep of the Star Fox franchise. We gave you the background story for Dinosaur Planet, but what about Star Fox? Star Fox, at the time, was a juggernaut for Nintendo. It debuted on the Super Nintendo with Star Fox. Think about all the classic games on Super Nintendo. All the fantastic first-party games, the memorable RPGs, and the iconic platformers. Well, Star Fox still found a way to carve a role for itself. It was graphically ahead of its time as one of the first 3D games. And with its sequel, Star Fox 64, Nintendo had something really special in their hands. Star Fox had established itself as a legitimate player in the on-rail shooter genre. Its mix of on-rail shooting, being one of the first and best 3D games, and its memorable cast of anamorphic pilots made it stand out. That brings us to Star Fox Adventures. Most gamers felt hoodwinked when they got a Zelda game disguised as a Star Fox game. We said Dinosaur Planet was a take on Zelda, which means this is basically a Zelda game in Fox clothing. At the same time, that's really what I think makes it a great game, but why I consider it a love it or hate it situation. I think Star Fox Adventures hangs with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Sure, maybe it's not quite as good as those two, but Adventures is still a really solid title. There are still some on-rail shooting sections jammed when you're traveling between areas, but Star Fox Adventures is simply not like anything Star Fox has done before. And if you are here solely for fast-paced shooting action, immersive 3D space levels, and a wisecracking crew, this game may not be for you. But if you want a fun adventure game starring Fox McCloud inspired by some Zelda tropes, with the occasional shoot 'em up parts, then you may love it. I think either way, this game is certainly worth checking out. Next up is Mega Man Legends. If you followed my channel for any length of time, you know I never pass up a chance to talk about this game. We mentioned it back when we did our video covering 2D games that went 3D. Interestingly enough, this was one of the first times Mega Man went 3D. We all know and associate Mega Man as a 2D side-scrolling run-and-gun platform shooter, and of course it does it really, really well. And by the time the PS1 and Sega Saturn were out, the days of 3D gaming were upon us. Everybody awaited to see what Mega Man would do with the newfound technology. Well, they'd have to wait, because the mainline Mega Man games like Mega Man 8 would stay in the 2D space. Finally, Mega Man Legends would come out, and it was the Blue Bombers' take on a fully realized 3D world. The game did well enough to get a sequel and a prequel. However, the story never reached its natural conclusions, making this a very interesting take on the Mega Man series. With the lead developer departing from Capcom, Capcom seems to have no real interest in bringing Mega Man Legends back, which makes it quite the black sheep of the Mega Man franchise. It's completely different from anything else the series has to offer, and will most likely never see a true conclusion. Next up is the Jak series. Naughty Dog is a great developer with some amazing titles under their belt. But in my opinion, the PS2 era really was an interesting time for Naughty Dog. They were coming off the success of not only Crash Bandicoot, their PS1 platformer, but the gaming industry as a whole was rallying behind cute mascots that had ruled the last 2 or 3 decades. And with that, Naughty Dog released its PS2 landmark franchise, Jak and Daxter. It had a great vibe to it. It had a nice blend of fun platforming and combat, and sweet NPCs and environments. And well, everything was about to change. 'Cause here comes Jak 2.
Dark eco injection cycle complete. Bio readings nominal and unchanged.
Nothing. I was informed that this one might be different.
He is surprisingly resistant to your experiments, Baron Praxis. I fear the Dark Warrior program has failed.
You should at least be dead with all the dark eco I pumped into you.
What now? Metalhead armies are pressing their attacks. Without a new weapon, my men cannot hold them off forever.
I will not be remembered as the man who lost this city to those vile creatures. Move forward with the final plan and finish off this thing tonight.
As you wish. I'll be back later.
Yeah, a torture scene right off the bat in a cute 3D platformer. Only, this isn't your dad's cute, lovable 3D platformer. There's swearing, there's violence, there's even Grand Theft Autoing. It's just a completely different game. When I started this video idea, it was under the notion that we were going to be covering games that changed their genres. And Jak 2 was at the top of my list of games I wanted to cover. Basically one of the inspirations for today's video. As Jak and Daxter was a more traditional platformer, while Jak 2 is more akin to, say, Grand Theft Auto. The PS2 was a gritty, mature time for video games. With the aforementioned titles like Grand Theft Auto and God of War, they were leading the way. And the industry was quickly becoming very M-rated centric. Now, whether you believe the shift in tone for Jak 2 was due to the success of M-rated games, or if you believe that Naughty Dog wanted to mature alongside its gamers who grew up with Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter, either way, Jak 2 went in a completely different direction than we were used to with our 3D platformers. Now, the funny thing is, I don't know which entry is the real black sheep. Both Jak 1 and the duo of Jak 2 and 3 are ultimately loved for very different reasons. But due to the franchise doubling down on the basics of Jak 2 and Jak 3, I'm going to ultimately say Jak 1 is the black sheep. Jak and Daxter almost serves as a relic of old Naughty Dog. Following the release of Jak 2, Naughty Dog would nearly abandon traditional platformers with franchises like Uncharted and The Last of Us, proving that Naughty Dog's mature take on storytelling was here to stay. Before we get to the last game, don't forget to subscribe. We really appreciate all the new subscribers, thumbs up, comments, you name it. We appreciate the interaction with you guys. Now let's get on to the last entry. The last game we're going to talk about today is Zelda 2. We've mentioned controversial Zelda games before. In fact, we've done a whole video over it. And I'm not going to talk about the CDI games in today's video, And while Wind Waker was definitely polarizing due to its art direction, it won't be the center of discussion today either. I'm going to focus on Zelda 2. Mostly because Wind Waker, for all its controversy, is still a Zelda game at its core. There's just a lot more water and cartoony graphics. Zelda 2 is a nearly completely different genre from the Zelda games. It's side-scrolling, it has RPG elements, and it's by far the most unforgiving Zelda game ever. It's rough around the edges, and as I always say, people who defend this game often say, well, if it wasn't a Zelda game, people would have loved it, which I think solidifies it as the black sheep of the franchise. But it's really interesting talking about Zelda. There's so many games you could coin as the black sheep. I mean, Skyward Sword was hated when it came out. Zelda 2 obviously was a complete departure from Zelda 1. Wind Waker, right? We got teased with the GameCube demo, and Wind Waker was pretty much the exact opposite, you know? So Zelda's got a couple of games that anyone could argue would be the black sheep. Ultimately, I went with Zelda 2 for the main reason being it's so different than the other games, because I still think at its core, Wind Waker is Zelda, right? Whereas we think Zelda 2, like, it's an RPG almost, right? It's completely different from what we know of the Zelda titles. So that's it for today. As you can see, there's several reasons a franchise may change directions. Rebranding a game with a familiar IP, even if it doesn't make sense, just to boost sales, trying to capitalize on gaming trends, or trying to evolve with its audience. What are some franchises I missed that you'd like to see if we do a part 2? And of these games we talked about today, which ones are your favorites? Please, guys, let me know down in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next exciting video. Peace out.